You're welcome to the African Leadership Conversation, where we bring you relevant information about leadership on the continent. Our core mandate here is to bring you the answers to the hows, the whys, the whats, and the whens of leadership in Africa. So, over the past episodes, we've been looking at a lot of interesting topics. We've looked at the need for leadership development models. We've looked at leadership uprising. We've looked at youth in leadership and a whole lot of interesting topics. And today we are starting a series. We have dubbed it The Nurturing of Exceptional Leaders. And today's one will focus on the role of the family. And in the intricate tapestry of leadership development, the pivotal role of the family emerges as a profound and foundational influence. And now the journey to becoming a great leader is often not woven within the fabric of familial relationship. Today's exploration is going to delve into the connection between the family life and the cultivation of exceptional leadership qualities. Now, as we navigate the nuances of these interchange, we are going to unveil the ways in which the family serves as a crucible for nurturing exceptional leaders of tomorrow. And I'm happy to be joined here by two gentlemen. Somebody is a first timer here on our show, and then the other person you're already familiar with. So today I present to you Daniel and then Sylvester. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
Yeah, I would have loved for them to do the introductions themselves, but it looks like I don't have a choice. So I'm going to head right into it. So Daniel is an educationist, he's a husband, and he's also a president for the foundation sector here at the Grace Life Leadership Center. And then Sly is a consultant, he's the president for the education sector here at the Grace Life Leadership Center. A quick question for you, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Any profound memories of your childhood that you'd want to share with the guests or our viewers today?
Okay. Let me share something
Okay.
interesting, right? Okay. So there was a time, we all have that moment where we've been very stubborn before. Now we are no more stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was young, right, there was this time that there was a student get together, in the night. They organized this program for us to go out and, meet and sing and those kind of things, to music. Now, my parents wouldn't allow me to take part in such a program, because they think it was late, and yeah, my dad especially. So I still found a way of sneaking out after I timed when he would go to sleep, when my mom would go to sleep. So I timed them, and I sneaked out, I went and had all the fun and came back with my dirty feet and all of that. Now, interestingly, this man who sometimes will go all around, in the night to make sure that we are all asleep and we are all fine, comfortable, came, and apparently I wasn't around. Guess what he did?
No.
He slept on my bed.
Hey.
He slept in the room waiting for me. I got inside and he was on my bed, waiting for me.
With a cane.
Well, there was no cane.
Okay, lucky you.
I was like, God, how am I going to quietly sleep? And this man will not realize. The moment I lay down, he got up. He said, where are you coming from? The rest is history. He said, you go and sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk about it. And I'm sure you can guess what happened the following day. Drama and all of that speaking to me. Yes. But this is a memory that will forever remain. And it tells me that, you can't have all of that. You can't, put all measures in place to avoid difficulties. Sometimes you'll be caught. And yeah.
All right. And then Daniel.
Oh, mine is something quite simple. It was one of the ways that my mother would, correct us. Um, Growing up, sometimes you would go and play, do all the things you're not supposed to do, or you not stay at home when you're supposed to, be at home. And then, especially during the Hamatan period, bathing was something else, especially in the evening. So mommy would just say, "Oh, just go take your bath, and you'll be there. You go and wash your feet and everything. You come back, Mama Jari, and then she sees you. She knows you have not taken your bath, but then she wouldn't say anything. She just they're cool. You go and sleep. She'll close the store somewhere around 11 thereabout, and then when she comes in, she'll just lift you, bring you outside, and then tell you that if you don't bath, you're not sleeping. Then at that point, you have to deal with the night, the place being quiet, being afraid, and it was a way of shaping us in that if you didn't want that situation where you would go and then at night you are just there alone, you just take your bath when
Yeah.
you are supposed to, and that was a very I would say way of teaching us or correcting me and some of my siblings,
Yes.
without necessarily. Those were the times when she chose not to, use the cane or use the
Yes.
normal African correctional system,
Yeah.
basically. And then that was it. So that's one of the things that I learned from her, that sometimes you have to find other ways, of correcting
Okay,
family.
so mine is when I was growing up, we lived in a story building, and we had times that we were supposed to be asleep and not
Right.
watching TV. I think it
Mm.
was after 9 or so. So there was usually it was the era of telenovelas, and
Mm-hmm.
then they somehow chose to show them very late, Saturday evenings to be specific. And you have church on Sunday. My dad was very strict about going to
Right.
church. But I mean, I wanted to watch those telenovelas so that when I go to church, I would have something to share with my friends after Sunday school. So there were times that you sneak out and then
Mm-hmm.
you go downstairs, you turn on the TV quietly and put the sound very
Very low.
low, and then have to put your ears very close so you could hear the conversations. Those were the times that they didn't used to write it. Like
Subtitle.
the subtitles, so then you just have to, it's just the hearing
Yeah.
aspect of it. And eventually one day I was caught and that was the end of it. So
I think you have
yes.
a similar story like mine.
Yes, so the point is those rules were good for us. It taught us that there was time for everything. There was time
Mm-hmm.
to sleep, there's time to watch TV, and there was time to study.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way it shaped us
Yeah.
to become who we are right now and to become the leaders that Africa needs. Now, I read something this morning that said that by the African Development Bank. So they said Africa's resources, when put together, is over $62 trillion. And the only issue is that if they are managed very well, we don't have to be poor as a continent.
Mm-hmm.
And then it dawned on me that yes, we've been talking about the issue about leadership. It's even why we are here today,
Right.
the whole issue around leadership. But before leadership, there's something that plays a key role. What goes into the making of great leaders? The family cannot be left out of that conversation. So, Daniel, you're a family man, you're a husband, you come from an extended family, I suppose,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you hold family dear to your heart. So, tell
Yes.
me, what are some of the family experiences that have shaped your foundational principles and values that have now later contributed to your leadership style?
Oh, okay. All right. So we do basically, you have this nuclear family where it's just you, and
Exactly.
then we have a Ghanaian one where if you say your family, then you live with other people like your
Yeah,
cousins and all of
extended
that.
family, and even for the accounts, there was wafa,
Offer.
wafa, sewa, wafa, and all that.
There's even something that they say that for uncle is there, I
You
don't know what
see,
uncle
oh.
is taking.
So
Yeah.
what he means is that my uncle is there, so I'm not
I'm
going
not
to
going to
work.
work, because uncle will
Care of
take care
me.
of me.
Exactly.
The inheritance and
Yes,
everything. All right.
chain.
So I grew up in a setting like that, in with my parents anyway. But
Yes.
then with these people being there, some of
Okay.
them occasionally you'll have an auntie pass by, a cousin who comes to live with you, and something like that. So
You
we
know
have.
that before that there are some times that you go to school, and when you are getting close to your door and you see a particular shoe outside, you know who has arrived.
Yeah.
Was it the same for you,
I mean,
Sly?
no, the shoes for
Sometimes
the
it's
auntie.
You can tell them by their shoes.
sometimes it's even some particular utensils that are taken and cleaned
Uh-huh.
like a day
Uh-huh.
before. Then you know that the
Somebody
moment
is
they
here.
clean this thing, then you mean that this particular person is
Oh,
is is,
nice.
is coming around anyway. So there is that family, and then I would also say that, and you would say that that is family by blood.
Yes.
But then there are also other people that family is not necessarily by blood, but people that they grew up with, people in their environment, their friends,
Yes.
and for them, like that is their core family.
Yes.
Um, Now, the family is very important in the sense that it is the first agent of socialization. That is the it is the agency that introduces you, the child, to the world.
Yes.
And I must say that most of the values of a person is picked up, from that time.
Yes.
So, for instance, one of the things that we used to do as like when I was young, that I even had to teach my wife when
Eh,
when we got married
I told you it's a family man.
was was the concept of eating together.
Okay.
So eating together, not that there weren't enough utensils to share for each and everyone to get their food,
So just to be
but
sure, eating from the same
yes, eating
bowl.
from
Okay.
the same bowl. Yes.
Okay.
So it was a way of teaching us how to share,
All right.
so that you were not giving individualized bowls for you go sit at your corner, you go sit at your corner. Mommy would get some big earthenware bowl or
Mm-hmm.
something and then put the food in, and then everybody sits there and then eats. So we learned how to share, like at that particular, like from that particular experience, and so you learn that even there are times when you are giving gifts, and
Yes.
then your parents would, or mommy would insist that you don't take it alone, but then you ensure that other, like your other siblings, benefit from it. And so even if it was something edible, sometimes you have to wait for the others to arrive, and then you give it, you eat it at that time, so that those people to, or those other siblings, will be able to get some. And then from that experience we learned the concept of sharing.
Yes.
Also, one of the things that that particular experience, for instance, taught me was how to live with other people. How, if I have a problem with you, it will be difficult to eat from the same bowl with someone you have a problem with.
Right.
Mm.
It will be
Yeah.
very, difficult.
Yeah.
And so it was a way of ensuring that, well, there's unity, we are one, we are doing everything together, and there is no bad blood or anything like that. And it's something that I carried. And so when I mentioned my wife, for instance, it's something that stuck on. And so she grew up in a house where you had to, not that they didn't learn those values, but then you had to eat alone.
Yes.
But then, and so, like, she serves her food, I serve my food. Like, she served me, and I said, no, we have to eat
Eat together.
together. That way, even if we have a problem, assuming something takes place, we disagree on something, in the evening or in the morning or in the afternoon, we have to eat, and we have to eat the food
Together.
together. So from that, I learned how to relate with people, how to solve issues quickly, like the moment they are starting, so that you can live with those people fine without any issues.
Okay, so what Daniel is saying is that he picked those values as a child, and it has formed, it has shaped him as a leader. Now, if he's working with a team, he knows how to share, no matter how
Yeah.
little, and knows how to resolve issues quickly, like no matter how challenging the issue is. Okay, and then Sylvester, how about you?
Very interesting and inspiring, story from
Yes.
Daniel. Now, before I even say anything, let me just say that I'm really, really excited about this topic we're talking about.
Yes.
And you know why? Now, everybody has accepted, come to the conclusion that the problem of Africa is leadership.
Yes.
Everybody knows that's the problem. Now, how do we solve it?
Yes.
Nobody talks about that. And I'm excited, particularly about this topic, because and we're talking about family and
Yes.
its relations with an individual's leadership
Yes.
capacities and all of that.
Yes.
Now, the conversation we are going to have actually places the responsibility of getting or producing the type of leaders we expect directly into the hands of family. In fact, and if we all have families, it means that we all have a responsibility to create the type of leaders we are all expecting.
Yes.
So I'm really happy because what it means is that we all have a responsibility to creating the type of leaders we expect, right? So it's a really good topic, and it's been confirmed, through research and all of that, that indeed, um, our transformative years or our childhood years have a lot to do with our current years or who will become in future, right? I think Aristotle, I mean the famous Greek philosopher, is known to have said that, "Give me the child until he's 7, and I'll show you the man he will be." Right? Which means that, like, within 7 years, this particular statement means that this is when you can really cultivate in the child who you want him to become. The
Yes.
Bible has even said it, that train the child the way he should go, and when he grows, he will not depart from it.
Yeah.
Research findings have demonstrated time and again that there's a lot to do. Success has a lot to do with our past and our backgrounds. In fact, the Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell,
Yes.
Explicitly puts it. Malcolm says that who you are has a lot to do with your background, your family ties,
Yes.
the culture, the traditions, and all of that.
Yes.
To the extent that, in fact, he even says that to become a Silicon Valley, billionaire, it depends on the year you were born. Like, so
Yes.
there is a lot
Yes.
to do with our background, and that is why this topic is very important, right? I haven't said that about my past, my background, my family. Danny shared how they eat together and all of that. But one of the traditions that has stuck with me, which has taught me a lot about living generally and not just even about leadership, is how my dad used to arrange for us to pray together on 31st night after we go to church and come back.
Okay.
Normally you will come back after 12 because crossing over, right?
Yeah.
So by 4, we are awake again, where we meet together in the family hall. And you know how the prayers are done?
No.
So we start from the least to the eldest.
Okay.
So let's say that we have 5 children. Maybe one is 2 years, the other is 3. So based on age. So Kojo will pray for the elder brother or the elder sister.
Okay.
The elder sister will pray for the elder brother in that order.
On that order.
And
Okay.
so you don't pray for yourself, you pray for the other person.
Okay.
Which for me taught me about selflessness. That it's not really about you. So the prayers you are praying is all about the other person.
Yes.
God, please help Danny to do that. God, please, in this new year, let him do that, let him do that. Nothing about you. And then the other person prays for you, right? So it taught me a lot about how we should live for each other, right? And in fact, my local name actually, which is Manasseh, my Guan local name, means that because of you. In Chi, it means Munti, right? I think Ever says that Miawata, huh? Miaweta, right? That is my name. So, because of you, that is why I'm doing this and all of that. So, I think that particular culture, family culture, get together, praying for each other, has really taught me we are supposed to live for the other person and not really ourselves. And that has permeated into how I do my stuff and all of that.
He's left us with a deep question. Who are you living for? Yes. Okay, I think I know who I'm living for anyway. Maybe we'll answer it at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want us to, that was very deep, sharing your personal backgrounds, and thank you very much, Daniel and Sly. So I wanted us to look at some values we end up picking, and how they affect the kind of values we also end up cultivating.
Right.
So if you could look at it from different background, those from broken homes, what values they end up picking and how it shapes them, and then those from maybe stable homes.
Right.
Yes.
I guess you would want me to touch on that first before that. Yeah.
So Daniel, you can
so
read.
values, principles. I've said it here before, and it is something that I deeply believe in. That a human being is a sum total of their values, their principles, their beliefs, their cultures, and all of that. So if I want to know who Danny is, I get him to tell me what his values are, his principles are in life. I know who he is.
Okay.
Because that is what is driving what he does. In fact, to the extent that what he eats or what time he even attends, like it has a lot to do with our principles and values, right?
Okay.
Now, where do we get these values from? How do we get these values in life? Of course, it has a lot to do with our family background, right? So that if and you see, the other thing is that honestly, uh, even though I believe that we pick a lot of values from our family background, but I also know that while we grow up, we sometimes shed some of them off, pick up new ones, evolve, and all of that. But that notwithstanding, I still believe that who we are as adults has a lot to do with our backgrounds. So, for instance, empathy, right? Selflessness, communication. You value, you cherish communication and all of that.
Yes.
Most of them can be picked from the house,
Okay.
right? How do you guys relate in the house, right? Do you fend for each other? Is everyone for themselves, God for us all? Or how exactly is the house run? So
Okay.
indeed, there are a lot of values that the family imbibes in us that mostly we end up, implementing in our leadership careers and places that we find ourselves. So these are some of the values: empathy, um, caring for each other,
Resilience.
accountability, where your father will give you, so in my time, when I was growing up, when he goes for salary and all of that, he buys the things in bulk. So, Danny, your soup for the month is here.
Mm.
Because your soup for the month is here. If you come back, he has specific period of time that he knows the soup should finish.
Okay.
If you come back before that time, you have to account for why the soup got finished.
Mm.
Is it that you missed it?
Okay.
and then pip students,
All right.
did I say pip student? I mean, we now call it pip students. So,
Toothpaste.
but toothpaste and all of that, he has specific amounts he gives to everyone, and you have to be accountable at the end of the day. So these are some of the values: accountability. Um, how do you care for your siblings and all of that? These are all values that we pick up from the home, and they are very
Okay.
important. They end up sticking with us, for the rest of our lives.
Can we say same for broken homes?
Yeah, so yeah, good. You were mentioning that somebody's background in terms of whether the family was together or not has
Yes.
a lot to impact them. You see, this one, honestly, I think that it has impact on the
Okay.
human being. Where let's say that your family or parents were together, or your parents weren't together. For instance, what would it teach you if your parents weren't together? Where you
Okay.
are a single, I mean, you were raised by a single parent. Now, you realize how your mom or your dad was struggling to take care of you through hard work, resilience, and all of that.
Okay.
You're able to pick up some of those values as hard work because you can see mom toiling day in and day out, or dad just to take care of you.
Yes.
That is the value. Mom will do everything because there's no other option, just to take care of you. You will know that, she cares about you, caring for someone. Of course, it also has its own disadvantage
Yes.
where there is no father figure to
Oh.
discipline the child. So
That's in the case of a single
a
mother.
single mother,
Okay.
right? You might end up not being disciplined. That is not entirely the case, but mom might say that, oh, that's my only child. There's no one around. Let me pamper him or let me pamper
But there
her.
are some strict mothers too.
Well,
Very,
no
very,
problem. So
very.
yeah. I mean, but mostly two parents might help,
Yeah.
make the person more holistic. That
Yes.
is not to say people who are brought up by one parent. And that is why I was saying that it has effect and it has no effect. Sometimes when it is single parents, it depends on how the child is brought up, and it has nothing to do with whether, because it can be a single parent and the discipline is still there, and everything, all the values can still be instilled. So
Okay.
it's a two-way affair. It's
Okay.
possible that it has effect, but
Okay,
yeah.
Daniel,
Yes.
you are exposed to a lot of students. I mean,
Yeah.
so many of them. Some of them have ended up in leadership roles. So, what have you seen the line between
Okay.
the kind of values they pick up and then their backgrounds?
So the family is a very, very important agent of socialization. Like I said before, in that it opens the mind of the child to that whole value system, principle, and everything that the child learns right from the from the early years that may take the person through the adult years. Yes, there are some things that you will pick up as you are growing, but majority of the things are picked up at a younger age. So if the child comes from a family where values like accountability, honesty, truthfulness, integrity, all those things are valued, the child will pick that right from there and it becomes part and parcel of the person. The person grows up with it. There are some people who believe that better name, like a good name, is better than riches.
Yes.
And so for them, there isn't anything that you can possibly do to get them to do the wrong thing, because when they think about what they will be remembered for, then they are more inclined to do the right thing. Now, if you grew up with such parents, then you are likely to pick up, things from there. My father built, and he has this policy where if he does an estimate for a building, his policy is that the amount that is being charged for labor should not be more than a third of
Okay.
the
The
total
total
sum.
amount. Yeah.
Okay.
And he works to ensure that it is within that.
All right.
I picked up that from there. So from there, he ensures that the person gets value for money.
Money.
One of the things that my elder brother works with him, and one of the things that my elder brother hates to do is when he's asked to chisel a concrete that is done by my father. It was one of the most difficult things you have to do,
Okay.
because the cement is like
Cement
it's
won't-
in there, and so it is strong. It is very
Yes.
difficult. In all the years I've worked with my father, gone to his sites, I'm yet to see a building that has a major crack that they have to do something.
Wow.
Because he
Oh.
will ensure that the things that are supposed to be there are there.
Nice.
And I learned that from him. I learned service from him.
Okay.
Not they've said that um, um, humility from people who are poor is not really humility. They are just like bowing because. But I learned like right from my father that like that's not it. He's serviceable. He would serve if he had to do something or he was put in charge of doing something, and he knew very well that he will not be able to do it to the best of his ability. He will not take that up. Like he won't take it. He won't start at all. So I learned all those values, from them. And so if you grow up with the people you grew up with, you pick those values from them. Now coming to the broken home,
Yes.
obviously it presents a challenge, and it's not just about the broken home, but there is also the issue of how the broken home came about, how
Okay.
old the child was when the breaking actually happened.
Okay. Yes.
If the child was very 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 young, then it means that the breaking up was ugly. They may have missed all that part.
Okay.
But if the person was a little bit older, and then all those fights and things started taking place and all of that, the child sees all of that, and there are negative things that the person can pick from that.
Right.
Sometimes um when a couple is breaking up, some of them may be so focused on property, as in who gets what,
Right.
as opposed to who gets like the child, or who is keeping the child, or who is ensuring
Whose
that
responsibility,
yes,
yeah.
the child is growing up right and all of that. Situations like that can make the child feel unwanted. Situations like that can make the child feel that these material things are far more important and far more valuable than he or she, like the child. And the person can grow up carrying those things, like in them. Accountability,
Yeah.
which I am of the view is being taken from our educational system. Like little by little, they are taking it out, where
Okay.
students are not being held accountable.
Mm.
There's, like Sly mentioned, we do accountability in the home. There are times your mother is going out and says that, okay, I'm going out when I need you to do this and
Right.
this and this and this and this. She has delegated. Those are tasks that they put in your care.
Yeah.
And the moment the parent comes back, is going to ask or is going to look around. Usually it's the first thing they see. And so you learn accountability right from there.
Yeah.
And so if you have a situation where the child is not being given like those opportunities to learn those things, you don't when I mentioned that my father is a contractor, built.
Yes.
One of the things that I used to fight about, was that I was not allowed to go and work with him.
Okay.
Um, Usually he would say that mine is the book. Stick to the book. And so when they were going to like work, and then my elder brothers would go with him and then do the work, they would leave
Ask
me
you to
that.
stay and read.
And it made me feel like left out in
Okay.
a way. And so I felt more valued if I go there and then I do the work with them, and then we build like all that, like that relationship there and all of that. And so the family is very, 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 very important. And like I said before, the environment, it's not just about the mother and father too. It's also sometimes about the community in which the child
Yeah,
grows up.
especially in our African setting.
Yes, the people who are around, what the community endorses. I was reading, I think 2 days ago,
Okay.
and then someone was defining leadership, and it says it's leading people to do the things that they want to do. That you cannot force people to do something. So it means that if you're a leader, you can't actually force. That is why we have a problem with people who are authoritarian.
Yes.
They will do the work when you are around, but the moment you leave, the work is like it doesn't get done.
Yeah. Okay. So we've seen a lot of successful leaders.
Right.
I'm sure if you meet someone on the street and you ask them randomly to pinpoint a successful leader, they'll be able to tell you at least 2 or 3 of them. But then my question is, so these successful leaders that we see and admire, are there certain patterns from their family backgrounds? What are those patterns that we've observed? Like, and how can we how can other people pick up those values, or people nurturing, like parents nurturing their young ones to be exceptional leaders? Are these values that they can pick up too?
Yeah, really interesting question, but difficult one actually, and I'll tell you why. Now, in fact, so when it comes to leadership, I think here at the Grace Life Leadership Center, we've taught our aspiring leaders that I think we've concluded that leaders are not just born, but they are made.
Yes.
They don't just appear by nature, but they are nurtured.
Yes.
Right. So if indeed leaders are nurtured, then it means that it has good leaders have a lot to draw from their backgrounds and all of that, right? Having said that, to answer the question of some patterns that we've seen.
Yes.
So it's something that I've been looking at for some time now.
Okay.
I've taken a keen interest in the background of leaders and their leadership styles and their leadership impact and all of that.
Okay.
There was a time I told my brother that I wanted to know who is more likely to be corrupt. Is it someone from a rich background or someone from a poor background?
Okay.
In terms of the leaders, like presidents around or ministers.
All right.
I've been digging into their past just to try and prove this hypothesis. Actually, it's really fun.
Yeah.
Even though it's not entirely true that if somebody is from a rich family, the tendencies of corruption are low. Or if somebody is from a humble or poor family, the tendency of corruption are low and all of that.
Okay.
So I mean, it depends, right? But it is very difficult because we are not previewed to what happened in their various houses, how they were brought up. It's actually very difficult to know the patterns. I'm not really sure what you're referring to, but what I think is that we only know a general overview of where they come from. So, for instance, former President Mahama, I know who the father was. The father, I think, was an educationist. He got into parliament and all of that.
Yes.
President Akufo-Addo's father, and the parents, we are able to know. But exactly how they were brought up, we don't know. The values they currently have, we don't know how they imbibed it. Was it their parents? Was it from the family? Was it from the school? Was it from the society? That is very difficult to tell. But essentially, what I know is that leaders who have backgrounds, for instance, if a leader has a parent that suffered from, let's say, cancer, or some sort of sickness, when they are into public office, their policies might be shaped in that way they might be more skewed towards maybe implementing, solving pro-cancer policies than other ones. So probably that will be the pattern we can see that, okay, if leader A's father suffered from this, then maybe he'll be, or if leader A has a family that was more into this, they are able to do that and all of that. Or again, for instance, the leaders that we currently have, right? Most of them have parents who were into public offices. That pattern is actually very clear. Some of them have parents who took public offices, became politicians, and so they follow the same pattern, right? But as to how they lead, that one we are not able to know because it differs.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe a
but
follow
to
up.
yes, if I follow up to that, if I'm even looking at leadership in the broad sense,
Okay.
not just the political leadership.
Okay.
So if you take a player like Sedu
Mm-hmm.
Mani, like his background came from a poor village and how he rose through the various clubs to be a very prominent footballer. Now he gives back to his community. So, like looking at such traits and his background, we can see that it shaped him. Like anytime he plays, he says, "Oh, maybe I play for my this," having my community in mind. Even with the recent story that I shared about The Rock made a donation to a guy who had come from Africa to
Right.
box, and he said, like his daily affirmation, he said he plays for his country, he plays for his family. So you see, all these backgrounds eventually shape them
No,
in one way or the
definitely,
other.
definitely,
Yes,
you are right.
yes.
And I think I made that example actually. So, for instance, if I come from a society that is overburdened with a particular problem or situation, when I climb to the top, quote unquote, I'm likely to want to give back because that is what shaped me growing up. People were suffering from, let's say, tuberculosis or that. So when I get to a leadership position, I might, be tempted to help them. Or let's say I have a very difficult background, climbing through the ladders. It wasn't easy for me. Now, when I get to the top, where I don't really believe there's a top, it's just a progress. You'll be tempted, okay, let me set a foundation and give back to society, like we are talking about the Sadio Mano experience and all of that. So I
Yeah.
think there is a pattern
Yes.
that we can see throughout. It's there.
And even to add to that,
Yeah.
even an article that I read, I think 2 days ago by Martin something. They did a study and then realized that there was a relationship between. So, for instance, if someone came from a poor family, how they lead or how they are able to connect with people when they're in leadership positions varied greatly from someone who came from a well-to-do home. And the analysis was that someone who came from a well-to-do home or a rich family basically had a lot of resources at their disposal. If they wanted something, it was easy to get. Those people were usually the center of attraction. And because of their position, as far as affluence or wealth is concerned, they were listened to most of the time. And so such people gave less attention to other people if and when they were in leadership positions.
Okay.
But people who came from poor backgrounds were more accustomed to not being heard, not being sidelined, and they go through like all those difficulties in order to get to where they are. And so when they get there, they are more likely to listen to the views of other people and take them into consideration, take the interest of others into consideration when they are in that leadership role. But in terms of the personal qualities of the person, I believe that it has something to do with the parenting style. There might be a relationship between that and then the parenting style that that they were exposed to.
Yeah.
If someone comes from an authoritarian home, usually those people are less innovative. They they rarely voice out their views because their
Okay.
views are not heard. They are most of the time their sense of self worth or self esteem is usually low
Low.
because no one asks them what they think.
Yes.
What they think actually doesn't matter. They're just told what to do.
Yeah.
Apart from that, too, it makes it difficult for them to learn how to think on their own and make decisions on their own because they are never given that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, if someone is exposed to a more democratic style of parenting,
Yes.
then from time to time, a child like that was asked, "What do you think about?" You know, when even
Yeah.
from our background, rarely
Yeah.
were you asked, "What do you want to eat?"
Yeah.
Yes.
But these days, we have that, and the input of the child is taken into consideration. When that happens, the how the child feel, how important he or she feels, goes up. Such children are more vocal. They are
Yes.
able to speak because right from home they know that what they say matters. And for such people, when they get into leadership positions, they are more likely to give others the opportunity to also speak and
Mm.
hear what they have to say, hear their
Yes.
contributions, because right from the start they've been exposed
Yes.
to that. And
Yeah.
so I think that the parenting style is also very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which leads me to my next question. When you talked about the decision making, like allowing them to air their views and all that. So, this drawing from your family experience or how you grew up, how do you think certain challenges and adversities you face? I'm sure definitely no one like can say they never experienced challenges or
Right.
adversities
Right.
when growing up. So how have these challenges and adversities coming from your family and the environment you grew up from, how has it shaped you in terms of to help you make sound decisions?
Okay, so from my family background,
Yes.
we're not poor, but
Okay.
they're not rich, in between.
Okay. The
And
middle
so
class.
yes, so we the resources were not like that abundant. And
Okay.
so the thing was that my father had a system.
Okay.
He will do his part, and like you have to do yours.
Okay.
The situation was created such that you can see, it's like you can see that we are doing all we can. And so when we are doing all we can in order to help you, in order to push you, in order to promote you, and so what are you also doing, to help yourself? And so then it brings in the value of hard work.
Right.
There was a time when my father had gone to a surgery and to had a problem like with the arm. If he lifted it too much, then he would begin to experience pain. And it
Okay.
was time to pay my fees. And at that time, he didn't have a contract. It was just a house he has built for someone. And then the person wanted to do some touches. Ordinarily, my father wouldn't do that work. Ordinarily, he wouldn't. There's no way he'll go do that job. But
Yes.
then my fees had to be
Be
paid,
paid.
and it was getting close, and the money wasn't there. And so from there, I learned sacrifice. He had to
Okay.
sacrifice, and then I don't know if I'll call it dignity or whatever. He had to lower it and then go do that job. Now I worked with him. I went there and then I did the work with him, like helping him. And then in the middle of the work, as he's doing the work, I see that he's experiencing pain. I think it's painful.
Okay.
Then he would stay there for about 5, 10 minutes, and then like he would go back. And then now all that thing that he was doing was to get money to pay my fees, not for him.
Okay.
So I learned selflessness, like right from there. And so that has become a part of me, that if I'm doing something, I need to learn to if I'm doing something, I need to ensure that it benefits, other people. I need to ensure that the interest of others are taken into consideration. You don't consider just yourself and then what benefits you. Now, the hard work part is, what are you doing to push yourself? People will Things may be lined up for you. You can line things up for you, or things can be set up for you in a way that makes it more likely that you would succeed. But you also need to do your part. You also need to do your part and push yourself in order to put you in that position where you are more likely, to succeed. So that is one of them.
Okay, then Sly, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. So we are talking about how our past, our background have shaped.
Yeah, adversities and challenges, how it
Right.
affects decision making for
Yes,
you.
yes, really interesting. So I have a similar background as Danny, right? Where nothing was in abundance, but we could also manage. But we had opportunities to go to school and all of that. Now, so my family members, sometimes will deliberately put in place some measures just to make sure that you learn certain values.
Okay.
So, for instance, My dad actually died, at a very old age. When I wasn't too young, but I wasn't also too. So I stayed most of the time with an elderly brother, who
Okay.
is also diseased. But one of the things I learned from my brother was hard work,
Okay.
and that nothing is supposed to be on a silver platter. You work for it.
Yes.
Right. So he was supposed to take care of me. He had all the resources and all of that. He was a professor in the university and all of that. Now, he was also that industrious. He was that type of people who think that, look, let's grow what we eat. Let's do that. Let's do that. So during vacation in senior high, he used to farm. He will have acres of land for maize and all of that. When you come back from school, he'll make sure that when it is time for harvesting or whatever, you actually go together and harvest together and all of that. Or if there are animals in the house, you have time that you are supposed to feed them. You don't come to the house and just sleep throughout the vacation and go back to school with money in your hands and all of that. He wanted to make sure that we are working, we felt what they feel whenever they're providing us with whatever they're providing us, right?
Okay.
So you need to actually put yourself in that shoe to know that no, it's not that free.
Okay.
They are going through stuff to let you
Yes.
enjoy.
Yes.
So you take care of the animals, make sure that you give them the corn, you go out and
Feed them.
yes, just to make sure that you have the value of responsibility right there. When there is an issue at home, we will come together and they will ask, what do you think? What do you think? There is this issue, collaboration, collaborative leadership right there. And all those other values. So for me, these are some of the major things that I picked that have shaped
So
me.
do they qualify as hardships for you?
Well, so that is my way of saying hardship, intentionally putting you through it so that you
So that
learn
you
something,
experience it.
right?
Okay.
And yeah, there are times that mom will say that, look, maybe I'm not able to go to the market, or today we have less of that. We're going to do this version of what we used to eat, right? So learning how to abound and to abase, learning how to manage, learning how to improvise, and those kind of things, intentionally putting those things together.
Okay.
And of course, where I was growing up, of course, we all have villages where there was no electricity right from the onset,
Okay.
and you need to use, those lanterns, where there is smoke, and you have to go through it. So these are all hardships that we went through.
And I think, like, for instance, what Sly is talking about can be likened to. I'm saying that because he said, like, does it constitute hardship?
Uh-huh.
Can be likened to someone being put through a situation where you don't take advantage of what is abundant, but you learn.
Yeah.
So for instance, you could have someone who is maybe well to do, and then as a way of training their children, doesn't want their child to
Right.
think that, okay, everything just
Exactly.
comes to you, everything just comes easy, and so will intentionally create the situation where you go through certain things, and then you learn from that. And the adversities,
Yes.
it really helps build, like, you as a person. When you face challenges, it helps you think,
Okay.
and especially think outside
Yeah.
the box, because you are cornered.
Right.
And if you are not the type that gives up, if you have been faced with a lot of adversities and you've been able to come out of it, you, for instance, learn to build, like, resilience. You learn to be persistent.
Yeah.
You learn to be more determined. And in the future, when you are faced with challenges, you are not shaken, as opposed to if things are just laid down for
Yeah.
you, and then you are just picking them up.
Okay, so within that same context, we always argue that when you are leading the people, and you made an example that you are just leading them to do what they want to do, as you
Yes.
made us understand.
Yes.
So there has been the argument, or the divide, that there has been this divide that when it comes to political leadership, as we have seen in Africa, some people groom their children into the position, and I mean, we have countless examples to
Yeah,
buttress it.
yeah.
Look at Togo and other cases. So for these scenarios where they are groomed into the position, assuming they haven't faced any adversity, because I mean all their life they've been prepared to take up
Right.
this road, seeing their father like execute the role, can we say that when they eventually like take on the position, are they able to make sound decisions, in code, sound decisions that actually favor the people? Because then there are people complain that you've not lived like us, you
Right.
don't know the
Yes.
hardship we go through.
Yes.
Right.
How then can you serve us better?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what do you say about
I
that?
was going
Yeah.
to say that usually you realize that in such situations there's a disconnect between the person and then the people,
Okay.
and sometimes that sense of entitlement is there
Yes.
because that individual has been groomed from a tender age up to that. They feel entitled. They feel like it's a throne, and I deserve it, and I
Yes.
deserve the spoils and everything. That comes with it, and so they just occupy it, not not bearing the core interest of the
The people.
people,
Okay.
and not realizing that that position that they occupy is a position of service. They're just
Yes.
supposed to be there to serve the people and not for themselves.
Okay.
And so it creates that
Yeah, this
disconnect.
connects very
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
well. How about you, sir?
Yeah, it's very important for leaders to be able to relate with their followers.
Yes.
It's really important. And that is why sometimes we see all around politicians trying to eat with people, trying to pound fufu, trying to do all of that. That is empathy. They just want to show you that, look, I know what you're going through. And that is why I'm here for you, to help you come out of the situation, right?
Yes.
It's there and it's important. So if we have leaders who can relate to the problems of the people, I think it's better than leaders who have just been groomed and they think that, look, I'm coming to occupy a generational position. I think we would prefer people who can relate to the problems of the people than those who don't have a clue.
Okay. So then again, who is responsible for the grooming? Boils down to our discussion for
Right.
today, the influence of the family.
Right.
So what should be done differently then? In this case, if you are grooming, let's move away from political leadership.
Right.
Even if you have a company and you are grooming your son or your
Right.
daughter to take over, and maybe right from uni they are coming straight, or maybe right from their master's level they are coming straight into the company, probably have never done an internship there before, never done national service. Let me even say they just probably came from maybe the US straight into the position.
Yes.
So what is the role then of the family, knowing that you are grooming your daughter or your son to take up that position? What can they do differently so that they can relate to the people they are going
Yes, so
to serve?
intentionality here is very key.
Okay.
Intentionality here is very key, especially for those who are well-to-do, who don't really have that natural advantage, opportunity to let the children experience what they're
Okay.
supposed to say, right?
All right.
And that is why that example of my elder brother is very important here,
Okay.
where he intentionally made sure that, look, I was on the ground and doing whatever I'm supposed to do to, at the end of the day, make sure that when I'm going to school, whatever he gives me, I'm also proud of it.
Okay.
That at the end of the day, I've been able to not necessarily work for what I earn, but just to show appreciation to what they are doing, right? In that case, in fact, I even get to know what farmers go through to
Right.
get food to our tables,
Okay.
right? It's very important. So intentionality here is key, especially again for those who don't have that natural tendency. So like you mentioned, in a company setting, the family or the father or the mother is supposed to make sure they intentionally make this child understand what is happening on the ground. Where, for instance, they can even tell them stories of how, let's say, somebody in the company is struggling to make ends meet. So maybe at home you come back and you're like, look, Kojo, there is this worker, there is this IT guy, or there is this cleaner, or there is this who was going through a lot, because they couldn't pay for their light bill. Like intentionally letting the people relate to the issues on the ground. I think that is much better. And it is needed even in this 21st century more than ever before, where it looks like things are much better, for the children that we are giving birth to, where they are born into families that have everything. There must be intentionality, because we've established that what a child becomes has a lot to do with their upbringing. Give me the child until he's 7 and I'll show you who he is. So there must be that intentionality in raising the children to relate to the issues of the people and to be able to lead the way they're supposed to lead. So
Okay, then
intentionality
what
is the
would
key
you
word
add
for
to
me.
the
I didn't-
intentionality?
Adding to that, I think the motives, the motive. What is the motive that the person is coming there with? What has he or she been told that he's coming there with? I think
Okay.
that together with the values,
Okay.
would make things better. So is it the motive that I'm just coming to take over my father's company or my mother's
Okay.
company or a family business? If there's a business or there's an organization that has been created and it belongs to the family, businesses, organizations exist to solve a particular problem.
Right.
And so it is very, very important for that individual or that heir who is coming to take over be made to understand the need that
Right.
that organization or business was created to solve.
Yes.
That connection has to be there. Apart from that, so if that is established or that is well done, then the person knows the purpose and the vision of the company. Now, in order for the company or for the organization to function or to deliver on those objectives, you need to work with people. And so that is when the values that we've spoken about comes in. So integrity, empathy, selflessness. If these things are built into the child or into that individual, when he comes, he doesn't come as an heir with a sense of entitlement, but then in his relationship, leadership is also about relationship. In his
Yes.
relationship with the people, all these values will come to bear. One of the things that people who are not in high positions really crave for is recognition.
Okay.
When you that is why it means so much to the security guard when the CEO knows his name
Yes.
or greets him when he's passing by or asks how are you doing, because he feels recognized. He feels like I'm a person, I'm an individual, I matter. So if these values are built into the individual before he or she arrives there, he'll be able to connect, with the people and will be able to live. And I'll be of the view that that individual shouldn't just come and then take up from the top. It would be best if the person comes in at entry level,
Yeah.
rise through the ranks.
Okay.
You build through. In doing so, the people who are in the there are people who were there with your father, with
Okay.
your mother, and started, and they know more about the business, the model, the aims, the goal behind it. They know more about more than you, the heir, can like ever know, because they were right there from the inception.
Yeah.
Now, if that person comes through at entry level and then rises through the ranks, he or she would go through the various stages, establishes that connection with the people, is able to know more about the company, about the people who work there before he gets to that position. And by the time he rises to the top where he has to lead, he has earned the respect of the people. When he gets to that position, the people will no longer feel like, oh, he's only there because his father owns the company. But those who were there when the person arrived will know that, okay, so this person may have started as a secretary or as a clerk and has been here, has been through, like, has worked to get this company to where like it is. And with that said, the individuals will come to understand the company more and be able to help it deliver on what it's supposed to do.
Okay, so before your final words, let's look at this scenario. So, assuming you're already in the leadership position or role, and we know the role is not easy. You said on easy lies the head that wears the crown. So, we know being in such leadership, being in a leadership role generally comes with its own challenges and adversities. So, how right now, assuming you find yourself in the role, how can the family serve as a buffer to like these some of these challenges, and then to also ensure that you're able to serve effectively?
Okay, so the the family can make your work very easy for you,
Okay.
or it can make it very, very, very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yes.
We have people who come to work, and if you work with them, you only see them in that light, that okay,
Okay.
so he's my manager. And usually when you think about the person, it's just manager.
Okay.
But then that person too has a total life, home.
Yes.
You may go home beaten from work, you may go home with problems from work, with confusion from work. Now, the environment in the home
Okay.
could make it easy for you to clear those confusions and then make the right decisions, or it could make things like so much worse. So if the family creates their home that is conducive, it makes it easy for you, the leader, to be able to go through challenges that you are faced. As a leader, you have times, or times would come when it's like you're stuck and you don't know what to do. When that happens, the person who is in the house with you, like, what does he or she say to you? Do you hear words of, encouragement? Do you hear them trying to, get you to do the right thing, like lead you through the process? Okay, so what challenge are you faced with? What are you seeking to establish? What is serving as a problem? Okay, so how do you think you can navigate? Trying to give you ideas. They will make it simple for you. You go home, you are relaxed. Now, if the atmosphere in the house is one that is, toxic, then it only compounds. That is why, because I teach,
Yes.
that is why they would say that there are some teachers who, they come to the school and then a child does something and then they will just
Depends
lash
their
the
spleen
person.
on their child.
And that is not always true, but then there are some cases where it's true.
Yes.
The person is coming, from the house, and so whatever atmosphere that was at home is carried to the workplace. And so
Okay.
if the atmosphere at home is good, is welcoming, is supportive, is one that is, encouraging, and one that, makes it easy for the person to grow, then it makes it easier for the leader to confront challenges that come their way and be able to overcome it.
Okay, Sly.
Yeah, I really love this conversation, honestly, because we are establishing more and more the significance of family
Yes.
in leadership.
Yes.
So, one, we've established that the family has a responsibility in nurturing the leader,
Exactly.
raising and grooming them. We are now just establishing again that they have a responsibility in sustaining a leader.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
the responsibility is there,
Yes.
very,
Yeah.
very important.
It's like it's a full-time job.
It's
Yes.
a full-time job.
It doesn't
So
end.
yes, we
The
all have a
family is your own
responsibility.
official therapist.
Yes,
Yes.
right? So the family is at the core of everything.
Yes.
And family is important. Me, one of the values I have is family. Very, very important. At the end of the day, you go round. I'll come to TGLC, go here. I have to go back to the family.
Okay.
Call my mom, call my, and all of that. So family is important. They can either make the work difficult for you or
Make it
easier,
easier.
like you said, if you have a family that is encouraging, at the end of the day, you come home to encouraging words and all of that. At the same time, if you have a corrupt family where you come back home with an issue in the public domain, what do? Do they cheer you on, or they sit you down and they are critical about the issue?
Yes.
Let's say you are found to have embezzled some funds and you come back to the house. What happens? Do they say, oh, don't worry, or there is actually a family member who will sit you down and ask you, Mr. Kwesi, what actually happened?
Yes.
Did you take the money or not? Did you embezzle the funds or
Yes.
not? So the family is very important in directing us, reminding us of our values, and helping us all throughout. Because,
And
yes.
we spoke about their helping. So if they find out, did you really embezzle the funds? Then would the family be fair to then help you hide or cover the shame?
Exactly. Are they a family that is very responsible with accountability, and they will say that, look, go and apologize to the public, or they will tell you, look, keep quiet. So the family is very, very important. And because we are all from families, either it is extended family or nuclear family, there is a role that must be played. So for instance, you see your CEO dressed, his smile is either because of probably what happened at home, or his frowning or his grimacing face is from home. Because we all come from the house.
Yes.
So the first point of the emotion is from home.
Yes.
So that your CEO will either come home. So normally I say that if you want to know when to meet a CEO at home, please ask the wife. Just call, please. How did daddy come from the house
Is
today?
he in a good mood?
Is he in a good mood or is in a bad mood before you meet him? Because it has a lot. Honestly, it has a lot to do with the family. And also, if you have a family that is very problematic, tomorrow your cousin is here. Today this nephew has caused this trouble. The following day your daughter went and poured somebody's oil in the market. You don't have that peace of mind to deliver, especially if you're a public servant. So they have a role to play. And that's why normally when these bad people want to attack leaders in position, they attack their children. They just kidnap your child and you are gone. You can't do anything. The family is important. Or they kidnap your grandmother, or they kidnap your wife, and there's a problem. So the family has a lot to do with how leaders, either they are effective, they are impactful or not. We all have a risk. So either you are the child of the leader, or you are the wife of the leader, or the husband of the leader, or the auntie of the leader. Please, we all have a role to play. Let's help make their work easier and also raise them well. So
Talking about when you ask them whether they will help you to either cover it up or
yeah,
it will boil down to the values of the family.
exactly.
Every family will have like particular values that they espouse, which they feel, which they take pride in. So if it is one that stands on the shoulders of integrity, and they think that they are. So, for instance, if I get the opportunity to occupy any position or anything, I know for a fact that there is no way my father or my mother or any of my siblings will laud me if I come home with maybe some very expensive cars, but the money is from embezzlement, the money is from stealing, and no, there is no way they will applaud you. You will feel ashamed. Like that sense of shame will be there. You will see the disappointment on their face. You see, so if the values of the family are one that are right, when you are taking decisions as a leader, you think about that. So how will my father, how will my mother, how will my wife, how will my auntie feel when they come to know that I have done this, and this, and this, and this?
Yeah.
I think some time ago, I think I once heard that I don't know in which country, where they said they should put their pictures of their families on the wall, so that when they're taking any decision, they look at it and then ensure that you ask yourself that this decision that I am taking, this contract that I am signing here and doing all of that, is it in the best interest of my family? My family should come to know about it. How
But that reminds me, there are sometimes you go to public offices or even go to offices and the CEOs, they have their family photo there, but they will still be going like off their path anyway.
But you see, in thinking about your family and being family oriented, you are not supposed to be selfish in that you want to put your family first, yes, as a value, but you want to do it through negative means. If you do that, then you are not setting a good example for your children who are coming. Because if your son or your daughter has to hear from time from time that your father has done this, your mother has stolen this money and all of that, how will they feel? How does it affect them? How does it affect the people around you? And so even if you are doing things in the interest of your family, it has to be done in such a way that it serves a good example to your wife, to your children, to it honors your family.
Okay, so Daniel said the pictures in your offices are not for decorations. Anytime you are signing a check or you are doing something, please look at the picture and see if your family will laud you for the decision before you sign it.
Yeah, and before we go for our final words, let me just add this, right?
Okay.
In terms of what the family can do, whether they become a buffer to helping the leaders and all of that. You see, especially in our part of the world where we are not known for meritocracy. The family has a responsibility to help public servants, especially, to become responsible at work. So for instance, if you have a family that is very responsible, that is not hardworking, and all they want to do is for you to push them through positions, all they keep doing is calling you. So for instance, when you become a politician, your family can actually make you corrupt, even if you're not, especially in Ghana.
Even we, the people, make the
politicians so that your nephew will call you and say, oh, I don't really have the certificate to the University of Ghana, but I want to get inside there. That's a burden right there.
Yes.
Okay.
And because of the family ties, he will emotionally drain you. The other person will call you and say, oh, I want to get into this position.
Yes.
So sometimes, honestly, not all the leaders want to be as corrupt as we see them. The family has a responsibility. The family has a part they play in making these leaders who they are.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't just want to. In fact, to the extent that your nephew can actually bring their friend and their friend's friend just for you to help them. They're just trying to leverage that family connection to overburden your work. So it's very interesting how sometimes we don't think about these things, but indirectly they affect how leaders are they effective or not.
So how would they rather act then? Because if I have my uncle in a political, like holding a political position, and I don't have a job, obviously, and everybody knows that this is X is my uncle, everybody say, how is that possible? So what should be the way then?
I think this is a topic for actual another discussion where it's a meritocracy against family.
Yes.
So for instance, if I have my son who is all qualified for a particular position,
Yes.
I have another person who is not too qualified, who will I choose?
Yes.
Definitely my son. Now, if I have my son and another person with both qualifications,
Yes.
who do I choose?
Yes.
In fact, if I ask you what would you say, Danny, what would you say? Let me tell you my candid opinion. Because of responsibility and accountability, I would definitely go for my child, honestly. And this is not about, because they have the same qualification. I'll go for my child because he's qualified, not because he's not qualified. That's why I'm pushing him. And I'm able to also monitor my child to make sure that he does the right thing. And the people who are going to work with my child will hold him accountable because of me. Or I have the responsibility to make sure that he doesn't find himself in any trouble because I know that my reputation is at stake, right?
stake, yeah.
You know, so these things.
But what if he then uses your name in quote to cause havoc?
That's a problem.
And then
So
they
it's a
know he's
risk.
untouchable because he's the son of X.
I mean, so it depends on how your leadership skill is.
Yes.
Whether they know you to be somebody who cracks the whip
Yes.
or somebody who allows things to go. So the dynamics are different.
And you know, with that and with being able to hold them accountable,
Yeah.
if we're able to strengthen the values, if you know that in this organization that I am, my father, my
Yes.
uncle, my brother is the head.
Yes.
But he is someone that if you mess up, if you
No,
do the
no.
wrong thing,
Yes.
he will fire you.
Yeah.
Then you act right. So if the values are set straight,
Yeah.
like right from the beginning, then they know how to act. If the values are set straight, and for instance, you know that okay, so you are related to me, you're my niece, but you want to bring somebody, but if the values are set straight, then you know that okay, I'm going to help the person so long as the person has the right qualification. And so, maybe like you use the example of getting into a school and getting a particular course. Then the cutoff point is, let's say, 12.
Yeah.
Then maybe you have a friend who has maybe no chance of getting in or because of the application and whatever, it's passed. And you want me to help. If the values are established right, then we'll know that, okay, my uncle can help you. But what grade did you get?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you get the 12? If you got the 12, so long as your things are in order, he's going to help you. If it is not in order, he will not help you.
Exactly. And it makes the work easier.
If the values are established right and they are strengthened, then, but you see, in most cases, it is difficult to do. And that is why they are usually advised not to put in like relations.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why it makes it difficult to control the relations or hold them accountable is because of the problems that it creates. If I have employed my younger sister to work for me, maybe, or I've used my position to help her get a job in a public office, and then I fire him. Now I have to face the family when I go.
Yes.
I have to face Papi
certainly.
that you fired your sister.
Yes.
You did this and then. So most of the time, that's where you have the situation where the person may be doing something wrong, but then the leader finds it difficult to crack the whip because of
family.
Yes,
And
because
it
of family.
becomes easier if maybe they know the family they come from. So I fire her and I know that the family will support because we're all holding the same value.
Okay.
Right. So
If we strengthen the values.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
All right. So we've been talking about nurturing exceptional leaders. We've seen the role of the family. We love exceptional leaders. We love successful leaders. We want to be one. We want to know them. We want to nurture them. So Daniel and Sylvester, your final words to parents out there, to families. How do we nurture exceptional leaders? Final words.
Okay, so I would say this: if you are a mother, you are a father, you are a brother, the words that you say to the people around you, your family, it matters. It is very, very important. It can either build them or it can make them. Anytime you are talking to them, you don't know what they might be going through. You don't know what challenge they are faced with and all of that. And so just be sure that whenever you have to say something to a sibling, to a sister, make sure it is one that is encouraging. Dare and try to be there for them. Help them build the right values and the right principles to make sure that they lead and lead well. Because guess what? If they lead and then they lead well, the good legacy that they leave and then the name comes back to the family. So that was my final
Sly.
words.
Yeah, I'm tempted to say fellow Africans because I think this message is very important for Africans out there, you know.
Yes.
So we have all been yearning for good leaders. Only God knows what that means, but I'm sure we are all clear in our minds the type of leaders we want. Leaders who are change driven, leaders who are selfless, leaders who transform our situation, our societies, and all of that. But here's the big deal: the responsibility of getting these leaders is actually closer to us than we ever thought of, you know. And today we just spoke about family, the responsibility of family. Through this discussion, I want you to know that indeed we all have a role in producing the type of leaders we need from this discussion today. And so go out there and start playing your part in creating these type of leaders that we want, because the children might not be too different from the leaders that we have in our society. So we all have a responsibility. Let's go out and make it happen. You have a responsibility, I have one.
Indeed, we all have a huge responsibility. We all certainly come from like families. So this has been the first of the series, Nurturing Exceptional Leaders. We've been talking about the role of the family. So if you don't want to miss out the next episodes on this particular series, do well to subscribe, share, and then let us know in the comments what you think about this discussion. Thank you so much for today. Bye.